Fallout Shelter is more than an average video game. It is a good video game that educators can utilize with their students to create a sense of identity, community, and agency. It is a way to interact with virtual characters, take risks, explore, and think critically when making decisions, all of which represent James Paul G's principles of a good video game. Students will begin the game entering into a vault where they will need to select an ID. Already this game has given students choice. According to G, there is not much of that happening in traditional classrooms, demonstrating why Fallout Shelter is a great game for learning. One of the very first things students will be doing is creating their vault community. The theme of the game is to protect your people, which are also known as dwellers. They need to be happy, healthy, and safe from the radiation that is occurring outside of the vault. In reality, there are special people to do special jobs. For example, educators require the ability to be a good leader. Same goes for dwellers in Fallout Shelter. However, it is up to the students to analyze each dweller's characteristics and assign them to the job that best corresponds with their special attributes. These dwellers are who the students will be interacting with throughout the entire game. They get to explore and learn from each virtual character, and how each dweller brings a unique perspective into the vault. G describes this learning as systemic thinking. He says that games encourage players to think about relationships, not isolated events, facts, and skills. In Fallout Shelter, players need to be aware of the effects each decision they make has on the vault, and the overall well-being of each dweller. Systemic thinking is a skill students need to develop in our complex global world. Before even creating anything in the vault, Fallout Shelter reminds players that they will be given an evaluation after each day. By receiving such feedback, this enforces the mindset that risk-taking is accepted and growth is encouraged. G discusses the importance of failure. He suggests that through learning how to take risks, explore, and try new things, one becomes comfortable gaining feedback and is accepting of learning through failure. This promotes growth mindset, which is a key asset in the real world. This is what the vault looks like from the very beginning. It is up to players to create the inside of their vault, allowing students to be creative and use critical thinking skills to understand how might an organized community help keep dwellers happy and healthy. Right now there are only 2 rooms, big enough for only a few dwellers. Players must begin by adding rooms to expand their community. However, it is important that players think critically about the layout of their vault and how their design will affect the overall health and well-being of their dwellers. G reflects on his schooling and claims that schooling for him meant being smart is moving as fast and efficiently to your goal as possible. He argues, however, that good video games encourage a different attitude. In fact, they actually encourage players to explore thoroughly before moving on too fast, to think laterally and not just linearly, and to use such exploration and lateral thinking to conceive one's goals. G points out that in today's modern, high-tech global workplace, this ability is an asset. After playing for about an hour and figuring my way through the game, this is what my vault looked like. A couple more added rooms, very low food and water levels, and not a lot of money, which is also known as caps. I had 12 dwellers and was slowly figuring out the best way to have them working. I was also able to get 2 dwellers to develop a close enough relationship to have a baby, which was also another learning curve. One of the tips was to encourage dwellers to have babies, but once there was a child roaming around the vault, I quickly realized that they don't work, but still soak up energy and food levels. So even in the creation of new dwellers, there is constant critical strategies being implemented. Once more rooms become available, more dwellers will show up at the vault. Players will have a chance to analyze the dweller's special features and use their knowledge of the game to assign them to a specific location. As you can see, Jesse Meyer's highest category is S, which stands for strength. Because his greatest ability is strength, he would be an asset to working in the power generator. This is a technique players must learn early on in order to develop and maintain a successful full functioning vault. Challenge and consolidation is one of G's principles that define a good video game. He defines this challenge as supplying the opportunity for players to endure a set of challenging problems and let them solve these problems until they have virtually routinized their solutions. Then, once the player achieves the goal, a new class of problems arise for players, guiding them into the direction to rethink their now taken for granted mastery, learn something new, and integrate this new learning with their old mastery. Players will begin to learn what their dweller's specialty is in, but as the game prolongs and more dwellers are welcomed into the vault, players will need to use their mastery of understanding special skills and assigning each dweller to the appropriate room. However, through time, dwellers get sick, tired, and overworked. Another learning the player will endure and will have to think effectively on is how to help these dwellers. G thinks this phenomenon back to reality by saying that in school, sometimes the poor students don't get enough opportunity to consolidate, and the good students don't get enough real challenges to their school-based mastery. Through Fallout Shelter, there is a variety of challenges, making it appropriate for all students' learning processes. Another feature of the game is the ability to send a dweller away to collect resources and bring them back to the vault. The best dwellers for this job will be the ones who specialize in endurance, or E in special. Stephanie Thompson is a 5 in perception and a 3 in endurance, and looking back on this, I would potentially try and choose a different dweller, one who is higher in endurance. But that is okay, trying a strategy out and then learning from it as the game goes on is only one of the many principles G points out. In order to be successful while dwellers are on the quest, they need to be equipped with protection. Unfortunately, I did not have enough caps or experience to know this at the time, so I sent 2 of my dwellers empty-handed. Later on in the game, I learned from my mistakes because 2 of my dwellers died while outside of the vault. I did not prepare them enough with the protection they needed and they did not make it back. However, moving forward, I am able to learn from this and will be more prepared in the future. While the dwellers are out on the adventure, the overlooker can be in contact with them. Players can see how their dweller is doing and if they need anything or if they need to return home. G's 9th principle for describing what constitutes a good video game is called just-in-time and on-demand. This is described as when games almost always give verbal information either just in time, that is right when players need and can use it, or on demand, that is when the player feels a need for it, wants it, is ready for it, and can make good use of it. G believes that this should be the same way in school. He thinks people have a hard time dealing with mass amounts of words out of context, which can be confusing and messy for many students. However, using the just-in-time or on-demand principle in daily classroom routines, learning can be more effective and promote student growth. The last feature I want to review is the ability to speed up the dweller's working time in the vault to provide food, water, and energy faster. I believe this is a great feature because it allows players to feel a sense of agency. This is only one of the many different challenges players will face that allow them to make their own decisions. G recognizes that in school, student voice can be often overlooked. However, in Fallout Shelter, student voice is 100% heard, which begins to create a learning environment where decision-making and critical thinking are encouraged. As you can see, there is a percentage of success for if the dwellers have the capacity to speed up their working abilities. One example shows the disaster rate is fairly high at 45%, which means there's a 45% chance an incident can occur. I learned while playing that a good rule of thumb to follow is if there is a 30% incident rate or lower, there is a good chance the dwellers can speed up their work. Evidently, the 45% chance failed, and because of that decision, one of my rooms started on fire, which brings down the overall health of the dwellers working in that room. In the next example, you can see that the rate is only at 28%, and I decided to take the risk and have my dwellers work faster. Playing around with this feature allows students to make decisions, rethink their decision, and think about how they might play differently next time. This is an excellent skill and strategy to have in classroom learning where students have the ability to assess their own learning and grow from it. Although I have raved about this game for the past 10 minutes, I also believe as educators we need to think critically about which video games we are implementing into the classroom. Because there is intimacy, fighting, and the use and encouragement of weapons, I think it is crucial to have a conversation with students about the difference between real-life violence and video game violence. Even though there is implementation of weapons and fighting, that does not need to be the main focus of the game. Having conversations and being involved as educators so students can recognize how they are learning from play is crucial for any learning at all to be had. Overall, I would recommend playing Fallout Shelter yourself and experiencing it firsthand. I have only been playing the game for 2 days, so I know I have not entered the full game at full capacity, but I will let you know it is quite addicting and I am excited to keep playing it. I have been able to connect these principles of what constitutes a good video game. In my opinion, I definitely think Fallout Shelter hits many of them, such as agency, challenge and consolidation, identity, interaction, just-in-time mentality, risk-taking, and customization. Because of these connections, I think educators need to think about potentially bringing this commercial off-the-shelf game into the classroom and making a fun and engaging learning experience for your students. Let's talk curriculum connections. This video game hits many different outcomes related to the Saskatchewan curriculum. For example, in Grade 6 English Language Arts, one outcome that I see fit is a part of the Comprehend and Response section. CR 6.2, which reads, select and use appropriate strategies to construct meaning before, during, and after viewing, listening, and reading. Teachers can prompt students before playing by asking students to make inferences about the video game, if they have played before, what they think the game will be about, and what they think they will learn. While playing, students can journal their new learnings, have open group discussions, and possibly blog. However, these are only a few examples. The possibilities are endless. As a closure, students can create a piece of artwork of their finished vault, one of the characters that they felt represented themselves the best, create a video such as this one. Again, the assessment strategies for this game are endless. I personally would create a rubric with my students for their end project so they can have a better understanding of how they will be learning through play. I love the idea of creating a piece of artwork, whether that be a drawing, using digital media, clay, cardboard, and other medias the students present. I believe Fallout Shelter is an interdisciplinary learning experience for students, and by implementing curriculum into play makes this game an educational experience students won't forget.